Last time we spoke, it was a little while ago. I think we're kind of at the start of the first interest rate hike, and we it's
Yeah.
nice to get back on and kind of talk about where the market's been. It's shifted quite a bit, the from the mortgage side, from the real estate side. So we thought we'd jump on here and talk a little bit about the current market, what's happening, what to expect as a buyer, as a seller, as an investor.
Yeah, I think so I think last time we chatted, they either had just done the quarter of a point hike or they were about to, like, that same week, right? I think they actually did it, and then we did the live right after. So
I think so.
Yeah, things have changed a lot since then. The market's obviously cooled quite a bit. So not a whole heck of a lot of additional supply that I think's come to market, but I think demand has just been kind of destroyed a little bit in terms of people's appetite as a buyer to kind of get out there and have that urgency. Like, there just isn't that urgency in the marketplace. So I think to a certain extent, it's kind of nice to see for buyers, because we haven't seen them have this much power. We haven't seen them have this much freedom in so long. So obviously frustrating. I know, we've talked before about kind of like how we live in this Amazon, we want everything delivered immediately type of environment. And it's frustrating for everybody when things don't move at the pace that they would like it to move. But I think that it's really important that we set the right expectations with people that are out there right now. Like, this isn't happening same day for you anymore. Like, we're talking probably a couple of weeks for something to happen for you in the real estate market at this point in time. You don't have to see properties same day if you're a buyer, and your house is not going to sell on the first day probably if you're a seller. So the expectation readjustment took a while, and I feel like we're kind of finally getting to a point where people are starting to realize that, like, the market actually has shifted.
Agreed. I think we're seeing that from like a borrowing perspective as well. The urgency of, I need to make an offer right now, or I don't need to have any conditions. The things are changing from a borrowing perspective. You're able to now take more time because people know that there aren't as many offers going in. Maybe your offer doesn't have to be as competitive to go no financing conditions. So
Yeah.
We're definitely seeing that shift on the borrowing side as well. And people are getting, I guess, like, priced out. Like, the availability to be able to actually borrow funds right now is becoming more difficult as interest rates increase. And there's an argument about, if people are getting pushing out of A financing, what does it look like for B financing? Well, if A financing is skyrocketing, B financing right now, the rates are absolute insanity. We're looking at mid 5% interest rates. So
yeah.
It's not too far off.
We're at A interest rates that we would have otherwise got on the B side of things.
Yeah.
9 months ago, right? Which is wild to see, but we only have so many levers that we can kind of pull to cool down the market, and rates happen to be the biggest one. And so I think to a certain extent, like, having 80 to 100% price growth in 2 years for many cities in Ontario, that's amazing if you're a homeowner, but it's extremely unsustainable, right?
Yeah, and it's great. I mean, like, it's, yeah, like you said, it's great if you own a home, but I mean, on the real, like, retrospectively, do we really need 40% growth of properties every year? I mean, not really. Like, it's,
No.
it does create an unfair market to the home buyers. And I do feel kind of bad for the home buyers, just in terms of what they've been dealing with over the last year and a half, especially with, the properties being listed and what looks like kind of like attainable sites. And then they do end up going, 250. We were seeing like 300,000 over on some of these properties, which is just pretty crazy.
Yeah.
And I can definitely see how a home buyer, whether first time or, not first time home buyer, can get kind of defeated with that and just feel like, there isn't really going to be much hope moving forward. So I feel kind of bad for them. I do feel for them. And hopefully, this rate increase doesn't last too long, but hopefully it does kind of put a little bit of plateau and makes it a bit more competitive for them to kind of get back into it.
Well, what I think is interesting is that, and I said this on the last video that I did on this channel, but, like, if we think about it from, like, a sports analogy perspective, it's like in hockey, you have the offensive zone and you have the defensive zone, but, like, you also have the neutral zone. And for some reason, like the neutral zone just doesn't exist for people in real estate. It's either like the market's on fire or it's crashing. And it's like, no, can't we just operate like in the neutral zone a little bit where we all, it's like, it doesn't have to be going up with 30 offers. And then if the market changes, it doesn't mean that the market's crashed. It's like, we're just shifting a little bit more into the neutral zone. And I feel like it's really hard to reset and adjust those expectations because the market has been so out of whack for so long. But like, it's really important to understand, just because it's not 30 offers doesn't mean it's the market's going to zero.
Yeah. I think that accurately reflects society in Canada right now, though. Like you're either left or you're right. There is no like common ground anymore, even on like political
I can appreciate that. Yeah.
ideologies as well too, right? Like it's just you're here or here. So I mean, you have like, you know, what could be called the capitalists and the investors who are there to, you know, with purpose to give back, but also to create, you know, wealth and income for their families. And you know, obviously they would like strong markets and competitive rates. And then you got, you know, those who would probably be considered to be more on the left that are looking for, you know, fair home prices. And there's definitely something to be said about fair home prices for home buyers, but there is no middle ground. You know, you don't get both anymore. There really is no neutral ground anymore. Really, anything.
It's funny that you say that. I don't know if you guys watch Steve Saretsky, but he always says in his videos, everybody wants affordable housing, but nobody wants their house to be affordable. And I'm like, it's like the truest
I follow him on Twitter. He's good on Twitter.
Yeah. And so he always says that, and I'm like, it's very true. That's exactly, you know, every conversation that you have. So I want to buy the cheapest house, but I definitely want my house to sell for way more than that.
Yeah, that's
It's like you can't really have both.
Yeah.